Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to another session of Pastor Doug's virtual VIP midweek Bible study. And as you can see, my flying ministry partner, Pastor Doug, is here with me today, and it's always better to have you
Yeah,
here.
I appreciate that. Only for 3 more months of the flying part, because
Okay.
then I'm retired. So then you're
No
stuck.
kidding.
Then you're stuck with me.
Are
Then
you
I'll always
retired?
be
Are they
here.
kicking you out, or kind
Yes.
of? Yes and yes.
It's a mutually agreed ending.
Because of the
Now,
age thing.
age, yeah. When you turn 65, you can't fly commercial airline, and that's a FAA regulation. It's not the
No
company
kidding.
kicking me out. It's the rules. And
When
I
you
think
finally figured out where you're going, now you're done.
finally
Right?
know what all the buttons do. It's not kicking me out.
Well, you know what? It'll be fun to have you around more. That'll be exciting. You know, we're doing our midweek studies. We've been in this series about daring faith, and I have to really tell you, and I'll be honest with you. This past week, when the title, what was the title from this past week? Daring to imagine. And when I started looking at this imagination process that Pastor Rick had laid out for us, it was really interesting to me because it made a direct connection in my mind about how valuable our imagination is. And you're thinking, well, why did God give us this imagination? And then I broke it down about the different uses of your imagination, and some of them are bad and negative, and we all know that, and we all know how to do that. But the direct connection that having an imagination is to your faith was really, it really hit home to me, and it really meant a lot when I thought, wow, there's the fit. And we know you can talk to people, and you're around people all the time. They have no imagination. They can't imagine anything. Everything has to be this. So I see it, then I believe it. I can't imagine really anything. Do you know anybody like that?
Well, kind of me to a little bit. I mean, not when it comes to God, but I am not a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter is. She's amazing. She can see things in her head and then make it happen, but I don't have that creative mindset.
So we all have a degree of imagination within us, but there's a direct connection between your ability to imagine and your faith. And I just wonder too if our ability to imagine it creates a problem with our ability to believe.
Hmm.
Because you can even talk to your life about, well, I'm not a creative person. I don't imagine things. I can't see it, because I can, like with construction and stuff. You're gonna do a new kitchen, or you're gonna put an addition on, or build a whole house. I can kind of envision that process. I can think about the foundations and everything that needs to be done, or I can look at a wall in a kitchen or a home, and I can imagine what's behind there. I can see how that's laid out. And especially if you do, like, you want to cut a doorway into that wall, I can kind of imagine what's there and what it's gonna take to do that, from the structure to everything. And so some people have those kinds of things, and maybe some people don't. So I guess the question is it restricting us then in our faith, or do you feel, I'm just not an imaginary kind of person? Do you feel anyhow restricted in your ability to believe in God?
I don't, not from that aspect. Like you mentioned, cutting a hole in the wall. My daughter has her degree in architecture, so she has that ability to work on both sides of her brain. She knows numbers and crunching numbers and the engineering side, but she also has the creative side. She can see it in her head. For me, I'm just a one half of my brain works. I'm a number crunching kind of
Melissa
guy.
has thought that before,
Oh,
I think.
it's been confirmed, yes. But I don't have, like, if I were to draw something, it would be like stick figures and stick people like on that hangman game or lollipop trees. I can't draw things. I don't have that ability. I don't think in creative terms. But in terms of my belief system, that doesn't really impact me. I think what does impact me, and maybe all of us, is when you think about God, how big is your God? How big is God? When we think, all right, well, God, he does this, he does that. He spoke and the universe was created. So I think my picture sometimes of God, at least in my past, I didn't think of him as being as big as he is. And that would limit my belief in him or in what he can do. And he can do anything. But sometimes I would maybe maybe hold back or not speak to him in those terms because he was a smaller God in my past belief system.
The facets of our imagination then, I guess, vary, because here you have Pastor Doug, for example, who flies the big jets. I mean, and so you can't be an idiot and do that. It can't be close, maybe, but you have to have a major degree of intelligence and ability and coordination and all that to go with your college degree and your years in the Air Force and everything that you've done, Navy, everything that you've done. And so I think maybe our imagination has different levels, which then could possibly affect our faith. And so we have to imagine God. Do you find yourself having any inability to imagine heaven, to imagine the greatness of God or anything like that, since you admittedly say, well, I'm a very imaginative type of person?
Yeah, well, like with flying, you mentioned, a lot of people will say, I don't get it. How can something so big be up there? They don't understand it. And for me, it's just the numbers. It's just the aerodynamics and the physics. I get all that. But when it comes to heaven, I certainly have these amazing images in my head. But even the Bible says that won't compare to what it really is. We can't imagine what it's going to be. So I look forward to whatever it's going to be.
What's exciting to me, and when you said that, I noticed when you were talking about when you imagine heaven, and you kind of looked a little bit up, like we all have that idea. We all have that kind of feeling of what that might be. I know a lot of people that I run into surround their feelings of heaven with loved ones and being reunited and all the good feelings that brings in. But God, in God's imagination that created everything that we deal with in our universe, it's just an amazing, amazing process. And if you think about what is the most magnificent thing you could possibly create, or what would heaven be like if you were the creator, and then imagine God multiplying that times a million, because we just can't fathom and get any kind of dimension to the greatness of God and his ability to overwhelm us with what he does. There's a couple of scriptures here that Pastor Doug's going to share with you that I think really help us kind of put some dimensions on what we're talking about here.
The first one is 1 John chapter 3, verse 2. Yes, dear friends, we are already God's children, and we can't even imagine what we will be like when Christ returns. But we do know that when he comes, we will be like him, for we will see him as he really is.
What does that mean to you? When we talk about see Christ as he really is, and then the key, I think, is there we will be like him. What does that mean to you? And I know we didn't prepare this, just so you know, so I'm putting a lot of pressure on him.
Putting me on the spot. Well, we have, again, using our imagination, but beyond imagination, we have a description of what Christ is like from the Bible. His life, his teachings, his miracles,
the fruits of the Spirit.
So we have an idea in our heads of what he's like, but that probably just barely scratches the surface.
Right.
That tells us about Jesus Christ's time here on earth in human form, but that's probably nothing like what he really is in his being God. So again, we're just scratching the surface, and for us to be like him, knowing how fallen and broken we are as sinners now, the idea of even coming close to the man he was here on earth is hard to believe, let alone being more like him the way he is as part of the triune God.
I have two things there. If we talk about, and I've said this before in my messages about having the perfect you. There was a time in your life where your body and your looks and your appearance and abilities were maybe at their best. When would that be for you? What would you say? Is it now? I hope it's not now.
No, it's not now.
But what would you say? Just as because I'm going somewhere with this.
Late teens, maybe 18, 19.
Okay.
Something like that.
And I would say something similar to me. When you're at your healthiest, you're in the best shape, and maybe you look the best that you've ever looked. That's going to be that time. All right, so that's your perfect you. But and we think, okay, well that would be good. I'm healthy and everything. But now it says we're going to be like God. We're going to be in his image. And one thing I want to mention to you is after Jesus Christ had passed away, and they laid him in the tomb, and then 3 days later he rose again, and now he was out and people saw him. One of the things that always intrigued me is when the disciples were hiding, they were in hiding, and all of a sudden Christ appeared in the room with them. And so what my mind says is, okay, this is how Christ is post cross, post in the tomb, now rose again. This is how he is. And I'm assuming if we're going to be like him, that's how we're going to be. So the attachment I want to make is, how did he just appear in this room? Was he limited by time and space and physical things? Or are we going to be able to be wherever we think we want to be in that instant? Imagine how that would be, where you're not restricted to get in your car and then drive somewhere, or you're restricted to walk up the steps or whatever, which I don't like to do. But my point is imagine again how magnificent that's going to be. And listen, we are headed in that direction. And based on how you feel, and based on how you believe, and based on how you can imagine, is going to determine whether you get to experience that or not. And to me, it's just so overwhelming, because I have enough information to know, and I also know what the downside is, what the opposite of that is, what the opposite of not living for Christ and finding that eternal home is going to mean. But the magnificence of what we're facing, and this is what I want to encourage you, no matter what's going on in your life today or what's going to go on next week, you have to stay steadfast and accurate with your beliefs and focused on what God really means. Tell them about the other scripture here. Listen to this one.
From Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right. Think about things that are pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise.
What does that mean?
Well, I tell you what it means to me is, a lot of times we struggle with, what is my purpose? What is God's will for my life? And is God really directing my path? Is he talking to me? I've boiled it down pretty simply in that if I have a good thought that actually turns out to be a good thought, it wasn't mine. It came from God. And we have bad thoughts all the time. And we don't have to sit here and consciously say, I'm going to have a bad thought. Man, they're just there. They just pop up. And it turns out that the devil is not like God. He does not have all power, and he's not in multiple places at once. So those bad thoughts that come up is not the devil's hitting me on the shoulder. Hey, Duck, do this, think this. That's me. That's inside of me. So we have that fallenness. We have the ability to have those bad thoughts all by ourselves. So when I have bad thoughts, I realize that's me. And then I think about this verse. I think about, okay, well, that's not right. That's not right thinking. And I try to stop myself before I go down this sort of rabbit hole of continuing to think bad thoughts. And I start thinking about good thoughts. And then I give God credit for the good thoughts, because I don't think I'm capable of the good thoughts.
Most people control their minds. Yes, there are folks that have illnesses and they have trouble controlling the thoughts that go on, but most people don't have that. And Doug's family suffered a tragedy and a loss of life, and we were all at the funeral yesterday. And we had to live that for those moments, and it was tough. The service was a great service and well attended, and I was personally overwhelmed for the family of how many people came out to tell you guys that they loved you and appreciated you and everything. But that's the truth. This is life. And I sit there and I think about it, and I look around the room, not in judgment, just in concern and care, and I'm thinking, I wonder how many people in this room really know the truth about how this works and really know, how do I get to heaven? How do I make that? How does that happen? And I look at many of them, and I know a lot of their lives, and I know a lot of their backgrounds and things, and I I look at them in love because I care. But I just wondered in that moment how many people really understand, because when those tragedies come, and they will, they're coming. We have to be prepared for this afterlife, for our time with God, when He calls us home and He offers us that well done, good and faithful servant. I look forward to that. I'm really actually anxious for that. I want to hear that from Him to me, and I'm looking forward to those times. Your imagination matters. Your trust in God is a big deal. And I would encourage you to explore that. I hope you'll continue to come out in this series. We're going to do several more weeks of this series about daring faith and how we grow this faith that is daring in our world and can take on things that maybe we never ever thought possible. Just had a thought. I wonder if your perfect body could take my perfect body, say in basketball or something. What do you think about that?
Well, I had the advantage of height on you, but you had both strength and speed, so I think
You're not that tall.
I'm taller than you. I would get the rebounds, but
what if there aren't no rebounds? What if there's no?
You're a good shot. You're not that good.
I love you, buddy. I love you guys. I'm really grateful for you joining us each week, and we enjoy doing this. And I want to tell you, it's kind of fun for me, and it might be not as much fun for Doug, because we don't really have a plan. We say, hey, we're going to talk about this and these couple of scriptures. Let's go do it, because I think that's better, and I think it gives you a more reality of life and how we think, and probably say much of the same things that you would if you were doing this. We love you. God bless you. We're excited to what's happening at Faith, this daring ministry program that campaign's going on. It's going really, really well. Our small groups are doing really well. We're excited about that. It's not too late to get involved. It's not too late to be a part of it. God bless you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll check in with you next week.